Well, this half barrel has had narcissi. I think it's a white early variety planted in it now. This is its third year and it's really not doing particularly well. Combination of the position here on the north face of the main farmhouse here, but also the fact that it's just, I think, exhausted this compost. We have liquid feed the compost and the bulbs at this stage in previous years, but it's time now to get these out, get them into a better light condition, and that will give us the opportunity to replant this planter with some summer bedding. It's an ideal time to do this now at this time of year. Still in the green. You can see the bulbs where you're going to replant them, so you're not damaging other bulbs that are in the area where you're going to plant them out. And they'll take probably a year to 2 years to get back into real good condition, but after that then these bulbs will be perfectly hardy, planted out, and should give us years of flower over the next few years. You can see I've got a fork down the side of these. They're actually implanted incredibly deeply in some what I think is just commercial potting compost. You can see the bulbs have started to divide. I've got some little young bulbs off this. It's perfectly okay to start splitting these, or you can just leave them and plant them whole for them to grow on. The actual size of these bulbs, I can't remember what the mature new bulb size was that we planted, but these don't look particularly big to me, so I think these are struggling, but they're nice and firm. Need to get them planted at a similar depth to what they've been growing in this compost and get them planted out as quickly as we can, so for as little damage to the roots as we can possibly manage. And the green tops will then just gradually still put a bit of energy into the bulb, but they usually brown off quite quickly, go underground, and the next you'll see of these is the following spring. So I'm going to dig on into this container and see just how many I've got out at the end of the dig. Well, now I've got right into this container, it's pretty evident why they've not been doing too well. You can see just how many are planted in here, and they formed a real tightly packed confluent root mass here. But just look at this compost, you can see where it's nice and moist on the top, but even though we've had lots of rain here, just look how dry it is at the base here, and I think that's probably not been doing these bulbs any good at all. Now, obviously that won't be a problem when they're planted out in soil, but it is something you've really got to pay attention to in a big container like this, just making sure that you're getting your water and nutrients right the way down to the base and not just sprinkling it on the top. But that really does explain a lot. Well, just look at this mass of tangled roots from these narcissi that we've dug up out of that container. I think part of the problem is, one, the compost was very dry at the level that these have been competing for moisture, and that's one of the reasons they haven't flowered. But the main reason is just the congestion of the bulbs. It's like we've really overplanted these in attempt to get a maximum display in that container. It worked for year one, but subsequent years they're really just fighting for all the goodness and nutrients and light at the top end. So I'm going to split these clumps as they've come out into collections of between 3 and 5 bulbs, and then we're going to start digging these in to areas around the back of this border. We've got a mixed planting here with some little areas of daffodils, but also some herbaceous, and at the back we've got this row of climbing roses and apple trees with peonies planted in the front. This is a southeasterly facing border, so it gets a good amount of light, good enough to grow iris in this border, as you can see. And there's bare earth here, plenty of spaces. I'm just going to patch them in and get them all planted in, well, as many as I can in this area to thicken up this planting, which should give us a lovely view looking back from that barn window over this little new area of garden we're popping in. So let's get some holes put in and start getting some daffs into situ. I'm using quite a narrow spade for this to dig a full spade's depth down, and then when you've got your hole, trying to get these split out. Oops, let me show you what I'm doing. Down the base of the hole, and then just backfill in and crumble up the soil as you go, and hopefully I've got my depth just about right so that any white on the stems will be covered up, and they'll be planted at a similar sort of depth to where they were growing in the container. Doesn't have to be absolutely precise. They're a good 2 bulb heights down, these, so they should do really well in this position over the next coming years. Right, I'm going to do another hole just here, quite close in. It's the beauty of using one of these smaller spades. You can get them relatively close together. Nice crumbly soil in this area of the old vegetable garden, but there are some old bricks and bits and bobs in here. Bit of bindweed coming up there I need to get out as well before I plant the daffs. But I'm just going to work my way right across this area, removing the weeds and any root that I come across, and get the rest of this barrow load planted out over the next probably about half an hour's work, isn't it? See how we get on. Well, here we go, job finished. Never looks absolutely beautiful when you've done this, does it? Always got a little bit of white showing where you haven't quite got them deep enough, and they do look a bit floppy, but not to worry, they're going to be underground in a matter of weeks, and all around them we've got lots of fresh lush herbaceous growth coming up. So planting them into a garden where you've got a mixed planting, they'll disappear and you'll not be looking at them for very long. Subsequent years can look forward to some lovely white flashes of narcissi in this back border as the rest of the herbaceous is just coming through the ground. So I think a job well worth doing. Don't waste your bulbs, don't throw them on the compost heap, get them planted out. Do it now, because if you don't, you tend to forget about them and they'll end up staying in the pots for too long or being overplanted with your bedding or herbaceous, whatever you're putting in to your pots to grow on. So although it's better if you can leave them to green up and form better bulbs, if they're struggling anyway, best to get them out as soon as you can at this time of year.